Welcome to my presentation on increasing intrinsic motivation in youth sport participants, focusing on the 12 to 17-year-old bracket. It's been prepared by myself, Natasha Weiss. My student number is Q47011188. I'm a full-time internal student with CQ University Mackay. Through sport involvement, authors Fraser Thomas, Coit and Deacon recognise that youth can achieve numerous positive developmental outcomes. Authors Davis, Nambier, Hanford, Davidi, Messengel and Macready consider individuals wanting to participate in physical activity when young are more inclined to be healthy in later life than those who are instructed to participate in physical activity. Children and young people are choosing to leave their given sport, causing much concern for leaders in this arena. The Australian Bureau of Statistics has identified that with age, there is a general decrease in organised sport and physical activity. Wankel and Mummery's observations in 1996, as cited in Boyce and Sarrazin, reported that due to sedentary lifestyle of much of the Western world, there is a high dropout rate of adolescents in organised sports. A survey conducted by the Australian Government in 2011-2012 revealed only 1 in 10 young people undertook the recommended 60 minutes of physical activity each day. Authors Olds, Dolman and reported sports participation for boys peaked at 12 to 13 years, dropping by 50% by the age of 16. This report also concluded girls were peaking at 12 years of age, also declining to about half by the age of 16. The coach and athlete relationship. As described by authors Hanson, Gilbert and Hamill, it is imperative a coach makes athletes realise their potential. For an athlete to be able to achieve their potential, the individual must maintain high levels of motivation. There are many influences that may affect an athlete's motivation, with the behaviour of the coach being the most significant factor. The authors also highlight the coach should focus their own effort on transmitting their own sport values and not only induce behaviours. The self-development theory. Human motivation, along with wellness and development, are the basis of self-development theory. Boyce and Sarrazin recognise that self-development theory enhances the importance of 3 basic needs: autonomy, that is, feeling like the origin and not the pawn of one's actions. Number 2 is competence, feeling effective in one's ongoing interactions. Number 3 is relatedness, that is, feeling connected to others, caring for and being cared for by those others. That may be more or less sustained by the social environment. Mang and Ma note amongst these needs, autonomy is the most important component in predicting intrinsic motivation. Self-development theory has been linked with promoting healthy lifestyles, when an emphasis has been placed on intrinsic motivation, as well as developing autonomy, leading athletes to challenge their own self. Intrinsic motivation is an endorsement of actions by oneself or having self-determination over behaviours. Intrinsic motivation refers to an activity being performed for pleasure as well as for satisfaction as a result from this participation. As part of self-development theory, intrinsic motivation is an identified form of autonomous motivation in which an individual is able to identify and recognise the value of an activity, whilst being able to incorporate this into their own sense of self. Davies et al. Have identified that when an adolescent is competent and confident in exercise, intrinsic motivation skills are more likely to be developed. This has a positive influence on the individual remaining physically and actively fit. The authors also highlight that when competence is achieved in areas that an individual cares about, a sense of self-worth is achieved when mastery is perceived. When an activity is pleasant, athletes with intrinsic motivation are more likely to willingly engage in sport. Coaches' behaviour. has a direct impact upon their athletes. In strengthening intrinsic motivation in their athletes, the authors suggest autonomy behaviours are adopted by the coach. In doing so, they suggest the following strategies are implemented by the coach in their practice. Provide choice within specific rules and limits. Number 2, provide a rationale for tasks and limits. So when a task is meaningful, primary values are integrated and accepted more simply. Acknowledge the other person's feelings and perspectives. Be mindful of the athlete's feelings about set tasks and instructions. Explain strategy to athletes and acknowledge their possible resentment towards an expected task. Number 4, provide athletes with opportunities and independent work. Suggest possible strategies to solve problems, but also encourage the athletes to decide upon which strategy should be implemented. Number 5, provide non-controlling competence feedback. With this, promote perceptions of autonomy and competence. Focus on behaviours that the athlete has control of. Offer high yet realistic expectations. Number 6, avoid controlling behaviours. Avoid guilt-inducing criticisms. Avoid overt control. Avoid controlling statements. Avoid tangible rewards for interesting tasks. Avoid rewards for engaging in or completing a task and reaching performance standards. Number 7, prevent ego involvement in athletes. Lead the athlete directly to the outcome, not comparing themselves with others. Further to the already mentioned strategies, the following have been identified as being helpful in increasing intrinsic motivation based upon a program called Sound Body, Sound Mind, as cited in Davies et al. Develop a sense of relatedness to the group. Develop cooperative techniques. Instruct skills by demonstrating and asking the athletes to repeat and practice, and ensure that sufficient time in the training session is given for the athlete to practice this skill. Encourage participants to make mistakes, as this can lead to further practice, which in turn leads to mastery. Development and growth occur also as a result. The coach's encouragement during this process is thought to be a crucial element of the participant's learning journey. Create an environment which is emotionally safe. Provide autonomy for the participants by offering them a sense of relatedness to the rest of the group. Ensure each individual is greeted personally by their name. Authors Davis et al. Suggests that this may provide participants ownership of the activity being presented to them. Also, discourage the use of nicknames. This may reduce participants' desire to perform the provided activity, as it may make them feel uncomfortable. Don't use physical activity as a form of punishment. The aim is to encourage the participants to embrace exercise and physical activity, not demotivate them to be active. Select the class teams. Don't ask the participants to select teams during practice, as this will ensure that the participants are not made to feel left out or isolated. Commence and finish training program as a team. Begin each session with an icebreaker and end with a big finish. By doing so, this can encourage participants to look forward to the next training session. Friendship and involvement socially are an important part of enjoyment in physical activity. Don't ask participants to form lines during training, as this may cause stress on the individual by focusing on other participants, which may also be considered ego-orientated thinking. And this may take away from the focus on the task at hand, which is mastery-orientated thinking. And finally, place emphasis on fun. When celebrating group and each individual's effort, this encourages a fun and more enjoyable social experience. Boyce and Sarrazin have highlighted that when an athlete has a high degree of satisfaction, dropout rates from sport may be prevented. They have also identified 2 elements of sport experience that enhances athletes' motivation: satisfaction within the activity and the value that the athlete places on their own efforts. Research by Carosoli and Ford suggests not only does an athlete's intrinsic motivation involve a high level of enjoyment from participation, but the athlete must also be prepared to work on their own self-improvement. Athletes rely on their coaches to provide instructions and to give structure to the training program. Also, along with support and involvement to be able to best progress in their chosen sport. Thank you for listening.